From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Colombia's armed forces have said they will not stop fighting the ELN, even after the armed group announced a truce. The National Liberation Army said on Monday they will start a ceasefire for Christmas, starting on December 23rd until January 3rd. They called for the government of Iván Duque to stop military attacks and restart peace negotiations. President Duque called off the peace talks when he took office earlier this year. Despite these actions by the government and the army, the Senate's Peace Commission in Colombia has asked both sides to reconsider their stance to resolve the grave humanitarian crisis in the country.
The
ELN recently announced a temporary ceasefire that will start on December 23rd and last until January 3rd. Many see these decisions as a major step on the side of the armed group.
Our organization supports this announcement. This ceasefire will be short, only lasting 11 days, but these days must be used to have a meeting and restart talks between the government and the ELN.
Despite the announcement by the ELN and hope for the government to restart negotiation, President Iván Duque shut down this opportunity.
I think that a clear message has to be sent to those who continue acting violently, who talk about peace while they are still performing violent acts. The only way in which there can be true peace is with the release of all kidnapped people and an end to all criminal activities.
Members of the Peace Commission have pointed out that the ELN's announcement has to be seen as a humanitarian gesture to build confidence between both sides and to resume talks that have been frozen for 5 months.
We have to acknowledge gesture. Amidst a scene where there was no answer, the ELN is taking an important step, despite it being for a short time. I believe that the answer from the government should be to find ways to strengthen this decision and not to take it as an irrelevant gesture. We have to figure out all the steps that would reactivate talks, and we are going to insist. We'll keep looking for ways despite working with a government that seems unwilling to move forward.
Even with a negative declaration from the government, the ELN has announced its commitment for complete peace continues and they are not giving up on talks. Meanwhile, the Peace Commission will continue to look for mechanisms so that the government fulfills their duty with the Colombian people.
A court in Colombia has sentenced a man to 20 years in prison for the murder of a transgender woman. A criminal court has ruled that Davinson Steven Eraso Sanchez will be held in a psychiatric hospital for the killing of Angela Ramos Claros. This is the second time in Latin America that the murder of a transgender woman has led to a femicide sentence. The grandniece of late Nobel winning writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez has been rescued. She was being held captive by a group of paramilitaries for almost 4 months in Colombia. Melissa Martinez Garcia was kidnapped in late August near the city of Santa Marta. Her captors had demanded a ransom of $5 million for her release. The Colombian armed forces have so far captured 11 people connected to her kidnapping. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has announced a 16% increase to the minimum wage. This is the highest increase in 25 years. Starting on January 1st, the minimum daily wage will rise from $4.4 to $5.1 across the country. Additionally, an economic zone will be created on the border with the United States, where the minimum wage will be $8.7. This will try to tackle high turnover rates at businesses and help migrants seeking to enter the U.S. to stay in Mexico.
This is an increase of 16% of the base salary, so in real terms, it is around 12%.
After a joint effort lasting several years, we have managed to recover the value of the minimum wage so that people can improve their well-being.
A mother and her 2 daughters who were photographed being tear-gassed by U.S. border security officials have begun their asylum request process. Lawyers have confirmed that in addition to this family, 8 unaccompanied minors are being processed for asylum. The system at U.S. ports of entry limits the number of people that can claim asylum each day. This has led to months of waiting for migrants stranded in Mexico. A large fire broke out at a factory storage in the city of Toluca, Mexico. Large clouds of black smoke could be seen coming out of the warehouse. One person was hospitalized due to smoke inhalation, and roads were closed and the local airport suspended all activities due to the fire. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the blaze. Imelda Cortez, a woman who was charged with murder in El Salvador for allegedly attempting to have an abortion, has been freed after spending 20 months behind bars. Imelda says she never tried to have an abortion and that her daughter survived at birth. Recently, her case took a turn when prosecutors changed the charge from homicide to abandonment and neglect. Protesters had been demanding justice for Imelda, who had reportedly been raped by her stepfather repeatedly since the age of 12.
The truth is that it's been a very complicated case. Our priority has always been the freedom of Imelda. However, in the end, the court gave us a win. The judge said Imelda was a victim of a retaliated sexual violence, and that also explains why she could not behave differently at the moment of the birth. We are satisfied and think this case will set an important precedent. The judicial authorities are starting to analyze the cases from another perspective and in benefit of women's rights.
Latin America is one of the most restrictive regions in the world when it comes to abortion rights. Let's find out more.
3 countries in Central America have a complete ban on abortion: Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, along with Haiti in the Caribbean. The Dominican Republic, Mexico, Panama, Ecuador, Argentina, Chile, and Brazil allow abortion in cases of rape, and so do Colombia and Bolivia, which also permit in the case of incest. Abortion is banned except when the life of the mother is at risk in Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, and Venezuela. Some other countries make further exceptions when there is a risk to the woman's health: Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Cuba and Uruguay have the most progressive laws in the area, with abortion being legal within certain time limits. Even after this period, abortion is still allowed in certain circumstances.
The Declaration of Peasants' Rights has passed the final stage at the United Nations General Assembly. Under this declaration, peasants now have the right to seek justice against discrimination in relation to food, agriculture, and land ownership. The 17-year-long process was started by the international peasant movement, La Vía Campesina, and was supported by numerous social movements and allied organizations. Only 8 countries voted against the resolution, and this included the United States, the United Kingdom, and Israel.
The result of the vote is as follows: 121 in favor, 8 votes against, and 54 abstentions. Therefore, the resolution is approved.
More stories coming up. We'll be back.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. real lives. Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. In Chile, 19 people were arrested after police violently entered the offices of the Port Workers Union in Valparaíso. Special forces entered the premises of Ultraport, where several people were reportedly hurt. Many are still inside the company resisting arrest. The union has been on strike for 31 days, demanding better working conditions. Argentina's law of reparations for the children of femicide victims, passed in October, is still not being honored by the government of Mauricio Macri. According to the law, reparations are supposed to be paid on a monthly basis on top of healthcare coverage. Recipients of the reparations are supposed to be compensated until they turn 21, or if they have a disability, they get it for life. In Argentina, a woman is killed every 18 hours on account of her gender, leading to a high number of children who lose their mothers. Workers from a community-based television station in Argentina have been mobilizing after being taken off the air in what is being called an act of censorship. Workers from Barricada TV, a broadcaster with no commercial intent, say their signal has been blocked in violation of the law by the Clarín Group, the largest multimedia company in Argentina. Barricada is demanding to be put back on the air as they say their rights have been violated. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, has more.
Workers from the alternative media and social organizations have come together to protest against Clarín Multimedia Group, the largest mainstream media corporation in Argentina. Clarín have pulled the signal of Barricada TV, an alternative media outlet with no commercial interest. Since the start of President Mauricio Macri's government, the alternative media have been in his crosshairs. His government has amended media law to allow censorship of channels that challenge the mainstream narrative. The government is clamping down on freedom of speech, and only the media that supports the status quo is allowed to continue broadcasting and receive subsidies.
Edgardo Esteban from Argentina. Now to Venezuela. The country has been marking the anniversary of the death of South American liberator Simón Bolívar. Speaking at an event with the Bolivarian Armed Forces, President Nicolás Maduro asked them to protect the country from foreign attacks.
If one day they dare to touch even a bit of the sacred territory of the homeland, the militia and the Bolivarian armed forces must go out and expel any invading force that intends to touch the sacred ground of the land of Bolívar. The imperialists, the oligarchs, they come from Bogota or come from Brasilia. The oligarchs or traitors who sell their souls for a handful of filthy dollars from Colombia and the Northern Empire. They will not be able to defeat us. Neither imperialists, nor oligarchs, nor traitors will be able to triumph here. Here, the people will rule. Here, the people will triumph with their will, with their love.
The government of South Sudan has said the latest round of sanctions imposed on its officials by the United States are going to undermine the implementation of a recent peace agreement. The country's foreign affairs minister said the new sanctions were unjustified and will only lead to increased tension in the country. Last week, the U.S. Treasury slapped sanctions on 2 senior government officials, accusing them of fueling conflict in the country. Tablet voting machines have been set up in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo after thousands of voting machines were destroyed in a recent fire. The opposition is arguing that the tablet-like machines are more prone to vote rigging and feared that results could be compromised due to the country's unreliable electricity. However, the Independent National Electoral Commission insists the machines will be more efficient in determining the results of the presidential election to take place on December 23rd. The Nigerian army has called for the closure of Amnesty International offices in Nigeria, accusing it of working to destabilize the country. A statement by an army spokesperson said the organization's attempt to destabilize the nation were noted through what he called fabrications of alleged human rights abuses. Dozens have been killed in a shootout at a hotel in Ethiopia after talks between the army and two rival ethnic militia groups went south. According to military sources, the army was meeting the two groups to persuade them to hand over the control of a contested town to the military. Fighting between the Oromo and Somali ethnic groups in Moyale has left hundreds dead and sent thousands fleeing across the border into Kenya. Refugees around the world are not only forced to live in camps or shelters, but they often lose everything they own. An artisanal fair in Uganda is trying to reshape the situation of these victims of violence.
Mambi Malalumi escaped war in the Democratic Republic of Congo 10 years ago. Nevertheless, his life in Kampala, the capital of Uganda, is a constant struggle to make ends meet.
As you can see, I'm old. I worked as a tailor, but was making only enough to survive. I would fashion clothes to sell outside the National Theatre.
Things started to change once Malalumi joined a group of older refugees who got together to increase the chances of selling their goods at a refugee market.
I was an artisan back home, and here in Uganda I have taught many refugee children my skills.
Facing prolonged refugee status, humanitarian agencies have started to develop sustainable programs that include vocational training. People are learning things like carpentry or agriculture, while also socializing with people in similar situations.
We organize every year. We get together here so that people may come and buy their wares. This is to help refugees to increase their income, so they may become self-sufficient.
Creating ways for refugees to become self-sufficient is more beneficial over the long term than providing them with free food. It allows them to work with their skills and breaks their reliance on international aid organizations.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Marking 40 years of historic economic reform, Chinese President Xi Jinping has declared that China will not allow any country to dictate its economic path. The grand gathering celebrating the country's landmark reform was held at the People's Hall in Beijing, with hundreds of delegates from across China in attendance. The economic reforms were ratified by the Chinese Communist Party on December 18, 1978.
The foreign economic opening up is a great revolution in the history of the Chinese people and our nation's development, which has propelled a quantum leap in the cause of socialism with Chinese characteristics.
The trial against 9 leaders from Catalonia has started for their role in the region's failed bid to gain independence from Spain. A judge in Madrid is to rule on whether the case can be tried in the Spanish Supreme Court or whether it should be transferred to a court in Catalonia. The defendants, who are currently on hunger strike, were not in court but were represented by their lawyers. If convicted, they could face long prison sentences. On Sunday, thousands of Hungarians took to the streets to protest against Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and a new labor law. This new law allows employers to ask for up to 400 hours of overtime per year. Civil rights organizations have said this new law may destroy the remaining democratic institutions since Orbán took office in 2010. And we spoke with Balázs Ceko, an independence journalist from Hungary, and he told us about the demands of these protesters.
I would like to highlight the 5 points. So repeal the slave law, that's number 1. Number 2 is less overtime hours for the police. Number 3, independent judiciary. Number 4 is joining the European Public Prosecutor's Office. And number 5 is free media. This scale is very diverse. It goes from the left-wing anarchists over socialists, over social democrats, liberals, conservatives to the right wing. It's a bit bizarre to see all these forces marching together for democracy, but this is the Hungarian reality. And they are united in one position, and the position is to be against FtS, to be against the government. FtS is the government party.
Germany has approved a law to include a 3rd gender option on official documents. A new intersex or diverse gender option will be included on documents such as birth certificates and driving licenses. Until now, the alternative for people who do not consider themselves either male or female was to not fill in the gender entry. The father of a dying boy is begging U.S. authorities for a waiver for the country's travel ban to allow the boy's Yemeni mother to say her final goodbye. 2-year-old Abdullah suffers from a rare brain disease and has been in the Benioff Children's Hospital in California for 5 months. He's not expected to survive. His family is holding off from removing his life support so that his mother can see him one last time. As Abdullah's mother is a Yemeni national, she's not allowed to enter the States since the Supreme Court upheld a decision to ban people from Muslim-majority countries.
Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm here today because my son Abdullah needs his mother. My wife's calling me every day, wanted to kiss and hold her son. Oh. For the one last time. Time is running out. Please help us get my family together again. As you know, my wife was denied it to enter to the U.S. to see her son. And my son Abdullah is only 2 years old. We celebrate his birthday just 2 days ago. So I am here today for your support and help bring my family together for the one last time. Thank you.
Now let's take a look at a roundup of other stories from around the world.
Malawian Vice President Saulos Chilima has declared that if elected as president, he will make the fight against corruption his priority. Addressing delegates of his newly formed party, Chilima accused the incumbent president of presiding over a corrupt administration that has increased poverty levels in the country. Chilima recently fell out with President Peter Mutharika over government policies.
Malawi is, according to a number of respectable indices, the poorest country in the world. This is unacceptable. Our country continues to experience entrenched and institutionalized corruption, cronyism, and nepotism at all levels of our society.
The European Union-Africa Summit to discuss development, cooperation and innovation in the digital age has officially opened in Vienna, Austria. Dozens of government and businesses leaders are expected to attend the summit hosted by Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz and Rwandan President Paul Kagame, the current chair of the African Union. Manchester United Football Club has fired its head coach Jose Mourinho after what has been described as the club's worst start to a season in over 3 decades. Mourinho has been under mounting pressure, with Manchester United languishing in 6th position in the Premier League table. The decision comes just 2 days after United suffered an embarrassing 3-1 defeat by rivals Liverpool.
And before we end, we have the story of Gabriel Medina from Brazil. He won the 2018 World Surf League Championship in Hawaii, United States. He also won the Billabong Pipe Masters with a 6-foot 8-inch surf. Medina's main competitor was Australia's Julian Wilson, who played very closely but lost out to the Brazilian. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. For this and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And we're on social media as well, so go ahead and follow us. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.